Hello, we are back in Chapter 10. We are still looking at Tutorial 10-3. I decided to organize just a little bit. By now you should have looked at the first three videos. The first one was an overview with the abstract superclass student and subclass computer science student. The second video continued with that and talked about implementing an abstract method, calling the superclass constructor within the subclass constructor, and then the difference between an overridden method and an overloaded method. We also created a second subclass, an engineering student, and our fourth video is going to take a look at those classes again and introduce us to a summary form. The idea that I want to kind of emphasize, or one of the reasons that we're doing all of these examples, is that we want to be able to share data between forms. So if I run the project, you won't be able to see how it's working behind the scenes, but if I run the project and I enter a Bob Dylan, let's say, for example, and an ID number, computer science major, get required hours, student summary. This student summary is an additional form. Nothing fancy, but I have an additional form that's going to pop up some information. Click exit and I can come back to this form. If I change students, as soon as I started changing events in that box, you notice everything cleared out, it reset, and this was just to play around a little bit. I made the student summary button, I did not enable it until after you get the hours. So let's have Sally Field, and her ID number will be 345, engineering, get the required hours. Note the required hours now changes, which is more appropriate, and student summary, Sally Field is the student. Now, behind the scenes, we're going to take a look at how that happens. I just want to review quick the different classes all in one video or in this form before we do that, so we know what we're working with again. Our base class, or our parent class, is student. It is an abstract class. It hasn't changed from the initial, just a name and ID field, the getters, setters, and then we have an abstract required hours method. The computer science student was the method, or excuse me, class that came with the project, and they kept track of the academic track. In addition, they used some constants. You called the base class constructor here from within the subclass constructor. Nothing changed in that particular class either. So that's all the same. Getters, setters. There is the getter setter for the academic track. We don't need the other getters and setters because that's in the base class. We did create an engineering student, and I believe I changed this one just slightly in the fact that we added engineering hours, and then I did make and change, instead of the name of the track, this one's called engineering track. And the reason I did that, one time I was thinking of making my alternative form a selection for students to choose between like civil engineering, mechanical engineering, chemical engineering, materials engineering, etc. But I decided to not do that. So but I still am keeping this name here. But all it is the name of the track. So the two tracks, that is actually one thing that I changed on the form, was that I changed this to computer science and then engineering. I believe it said information science and computer engineering before, so that is one thing that I did change on the form. Other than that, the engineering student is pretty much the same. We do add in the engineering hours, so you can see that's why we got the different number of hours, which is appropriate. Okay, so that's the overview, that's the setup. We are going to now dig into what changes I made in order to change or transfer data back and forth between the forms. I'm going to go ahead and put that in a different video in order to keep the videos rather short.